Coming up, Trubisky versus Pickett in Pittsburgh. And Amazon in the NIL world for Southern Cal. Plus rapid-fire NFL headlines. But right now, each and every Wednesday, it is time for Primary Complaint.
It's time to air our top grievance of the week.
You can complain all you want.
My job is so unfulfilling. Don't run away from your feelings.
It's time for Primary Complaint on OutKick 360.
Guys, my primary complaint today, Uber. And not with the drivers, not with being late or running way too early for a scheduled pickup, but the tipping process. You can go ahead and pre-tip whenever you schedule an Uber to pick you up like 24 hours in advance, right? You can go ahead and tip the driver. Well, I do that. That way, because they certainly know whether or not you've done that. And then after they drop you off, you get, the next time you open up Uber, it could be a day later, 2 days later, it asks you if you would like to tip your driver, not telling you that you've already done so and you've already given them 5 stars. I would like a red alert that my wager already went through. I took care of this driver and I should X out without being demoted any of my own stars on the app itself. That is my primary complaint.
Uber really going out of their way to make sure they take care of their drivers. My primary complaint this week is that just because you may have the right-of-way or you may be right in a traffic dispute as a pedestrian does not prevent you from being struck by a car. So you need to move out of the way, one way or the other. Give you an example of this yesterday. Pulling out of this venue, there's a roundabout very close to our studio here at 6th and Peabody. It's a very busy roundabout with 2 lanes. There are blind spots. When you take a right, there are cars in the left lane that are going fast around the roundabout. So you're going right quickly, and there is a crosswalk as you go right, but cars are also darting from the left lane. Yesterday, I turn right and slam on the brakes, and the car to my left slams on the brakes because there is a woman walking very slowly on the crosswalk, and instead of showing some urgency and maybe, getting a little hop in her step to make sure she didn't get hit by a car, she stops in the crosswalk and is pointing at the sign that says yield to pedestrians and is telling everyone that she has the right of way. That's fine. I'm not disputing that. We didn't see you, lady. And just because you're right doesn't mean that you can't get killed by an oncoming car. So move it along. Let's move it along. Let's save ourselves ahead of trying to prove that you were right in some sort of traffic dispute. That is my primary complaint.
My primary complaint, Twitter plagiarism. Butchered that. Like this guy butchered my tweet. I didn't butcher it because he repeated it word for word. I tweeted, when Malik Willis has great protection, he does damage. Hit Mason Kinsey deep versus 2 DBs with beauty of a throw, but had little to sort through up front and had all day. Hashtag Titans. This guy cuts and pastes my exact tweet and tweets it. And then somebody else asks me who's copying who, as if this guy is somebody. I don't want to say his name because I don't want to give his account credit. But what's going on here, Chief? I'll be reporting you as quickly as possible to the Twitter authorities. Don't cut and paste my stuff from the sideline of practice acting like you're standing there. Not cool.
Well, he might be standing there, and he's probably allowed to tweet more than you are.
If the Titans are well, maybe he's there as a fan.
Who knows?
He could be in the media for all I know. There are a lot of guys I don't know anymore. But
a lot of press credentials getting handed out there. There's an army of press credentials out. It's
quite an observation you had about Malik. I think he's dead on.
Back at it with headlines next on OutKick 360. NFL and Amazon and USC galore. Second hour, we've got NFL headlines for you and college football discussion, NIL discussion. There's been another trade in the NFL. Titans are acquiring Ugo Amadi, a safety for the Eagles for all of about 9 days, I believe, because he was with the Seahawks. They traded him to Philly last week, and now he ends up in Nashville, which is where he's from. He played locally in the Nashville area at Overton High School and then at Oregon.
The Titans, strangely enough, now have 2 players from Overton High School. Theo Jackson and Ugo Amadi
that's right.
were teammates at Overton High School and now are teammates for the hometown Tennessee Titans.
In the defensive backfield.
For a safety, this is second trade for a safety in about 10 days, 2 weeks. They traded for Tyree Gillespie from the Raiders. So they've clearly got some issues at backup safety where Theo Jackson reemerged this week.
He's been banged
mentioning
up.
him. And he was playing nickel cornerback today because they're thin there. But they've got a lot of guys at backup safety.
And then
now.
they claimed Lonnie Johnson off waivers and moved him to safety.
He played
He's listed
safety,
as a corner.
and he was pretty good in the game. He played a lot of safety in Houston. And Kansas City cut him early. I talked to him after the game. They said, they told me what they were doing. They're kind of doing me a favor, getting me out there early so that I had a chance to establish. So now Gillespie, Johnson, and Amadi, maybe the Titans are 5 deep at safety. I don't know.
We'll
Special
update
teamers
you
for sure.
on more details if they come about.
Late conditional, I would imagine.
Yes, it's a 2024 pick is what Schefter is saying. A late 2024 draft pick, conditional. Nick Saban gets a raise. He's now the highest paid coach in college football, so he's back above Kirby Smart. He is one now of 6 college football coaches who will earn at least $9 million this season. You want to know the other 5?
I can guess.
One of these guys is not like the other in terms of name recognition.
Jimbo Fisher.
Yeah.
Kirby, you mentioned.
Yeah.
Brian Kelly.
Yes.
Dabo Sweeney.
No. Nope.
Ryan Day's not making that. So not Ohio State. Lincoln
He's
Riley.
making just under 9.
Lincoln Riley.
No. There's one guy that you guys are going to be, oh, of course.
Cincinnati.
No.
No, they're not paying. They're not paying.
There's one outside the
Luke
box
Fickell,
name. You guys haven't named Ryan Day. That's an obvious one in Ohio State.
Okay, yeah, sorry.
There's another outside the box name, though.
Jim Harbaugh
James
would have been
Franklin?
close to that
No.
list, but he took a pay cut.
Mel Tucker.
Oh, that's right.
Mel Tucker
Yeah.
at Michigan State.
He's
He's on this list.
He had a great year, and he cha-chinged
Yeah.
his way on up after that great year. So the contract for Saban is to 2030?
Yeah, they just extended him by a year, and he's now over the next. Let me get this right. It's like over the next 9 years, he's going to make like $90 million.
He's going to be
something.
pushing
not coaching.
79 years old in 2030.
I can't.
I just saw the length of that, and I'm thinking, he's going to be almost 80 at the end of that contract.
9 years is a long time.
Dylan and Tyler, if you guys are in the back, just give me a heads up. We last week I pulled a clip from the Dan Patrick Show with Nick Saban discussing retirement, and we had so much time we ran out of time and never got around to it. We'll pull that, and then because it's organic conversation here, we'll play his answer. I thought it was very telling on where his mindset is, and then that was what 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. Now today they announced that they've been extended by a year, but he's now what it does is he is now officially the highest paid head coach.
I just know he's 70. 8 years from now, he's going to be 78. I mean, maybe. I've always thought Nick Saban is a lifer for the most part. I don't know that he's going to retire and go do a lot of other things. So maybe he coaches till he's almost 80.
Colin has the audio for us. Here is Dan Patrick discussing retirement with Nick Saban a couple of weeks ago.
When's the last time you thought about retiring?
I don't really think about retiring. I always think about what the heck am I going to do if I do retire, and that's a scary thought.
I don't think about it either, Coach. When people say, "How much longer are you going to do this?" and I go, "I don't know. Why? I like doing what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm going to do when I stop doing it."
That's exactly how I feel, and I don't know if that's hard for people to understand. There's nothing that I want to do like some people want to go to Europe or go to Scotland and play golf and all that. I don't, I wouldn't mind doing all that stuff, but I don't have to quit my job to do it. I worry about, what am I going to do if I don't do this? And when I say what am I going to do, I don't mean play golf or whatever. I mean, how are you going to get any kind of positive self-gratification, the feeling of accomplishment when you've done something for so long that you like so much, and then all of a sudden it's not there? So it's a good question. I don't really have the answer to that one.
People are wired one of two ways, I think. You want to get to that stage where you go travel to Europe and play golf and do all that stuff before you're too old, spend time with the grandkids and stuff like that. Or you work up until the day you feel like you want to work up until the day you die. And some of those people, when they finally reach the end, may be presented to them not of their own volition, oftentimes, pass away in relative short order without work. It's your lifeblood in a way. I tend to be judgmental about it because as I've gotten older, and you guys know this, it's especially for men, you identify yourself by your work to a ridiculous degree, and I won't, people say, who are you? And I don't say I'm Teresa's husband or Simon's father. I say I'm a sports writer and sportscaster. Which isn't something I'm proud of, but I think Nick Saban's wired to the extreme in that regard.
It also just doesn't seem like work to Nick Saban, hearing him discuss it. I think he just truly loves it. I don't think he views it as some burden. He likes getting up and having a team to report to. He talked about self-gratification. He's clearly a guy who bases his gratification in life on work yielding results, and he's not going to have that anymore. And I'm not here to say that that's healthy or unhealthy or what. That's just how he's wired and who he is. He doesn't see any other form of gratification coming from anything else. Him going to have fun doesn't give him any self-gratification, I think is what he's saying. My gratification and a job well done for the day comes with going and doing something I love, helping people reach their goals, but ultimately me reaching my goal with that team and then seeing if we can accomplish it or not. And that's what I'm not going to say that keeps him going, because he's a very fit, seemingly healthy guy. It's not like this is what's keeping him alive, but it is part of his lifeblood, right?
It kept Joe Paterno alive, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
I think that's true.
Bear Bryant.
In that same interview, Dan Patrick asked Saban, he's like, could you get gratification if you retired and then went and coached as a defensive coordinator in high school? Like, could you get that same reward and feeling? And Saban was like, look, I really enjoy. He's like, one of the more gratifying days of my year is when we have our camps and you get one-on-one like instruction with kids that are going to go back and you may never see them again, but they're going to take whatever you told them in that 24-hour period or however long they're on campus and turn that into their football season and then potentially a big career. He's like, I get a lot of gratification out of that, but I'm paraphrasing, I'm also not going to be on the phone and tell you that I don't want to coach at the highest level of college football. Like that, being at Bama and winning and having that tradition, I think also plays into his drive. And you're right. I think he views it more as a hobby than anything else. And, I think far too often we're also a part of it where you reach a certain age and you start thinking, when you see a coach reach a certain age, like, okay, how much longer is he going to be at Bama? And I think a part of that too is SEC fans going, all right, looking at your watch, how much longer do we have to put up with Bama, before we have a chance again? And I think that's why we try to hurry the process up a bit.
You're dead right on that. I mean, every fan of an SEC team that's not Crimson Tide wants that clock to count.
If you're trying to climb the mountain again, you're like, well, give it 5 years, Saban will be out. Oh, give it 3 years or give it 7 years. It always continues to add up a couple more every time they announce this on an annual basis.
I've always said that the SEC is not going to have much of a chance long term until Nick Saban dies, because I don't see Nick Saban stepping away from all this success that he's created at Alabama. I don't see him willingly doing that. And that interview reiterates that for me. And make no mistake about it, this is terrible news for the rest of college football.
Exactly.
That contract was announced that he may coach until he's 80. This is not some, oh, man, we're going to have late years Nick Saban to go against, and that's going to be a lot easier. Oh, no. He's going to be just fine. He's going to put in the same amount of work, and he's going to continue to destroy almost everyone else. Now, the curveball in this is Kirby Smart and what he's done in Georgia.
Right.
That's now you've got the two-power system in the SEC as opposed to just Bama being the team to beat every year.
We've got plenty of time. We're going to hit NIL in just a moment. Here's a graphic. 24/7 Sports put this out today. Here's a graphic since 2007, since Saban entered the SEC. And we can go full screen. There we go. These are the coaches who have been fired or resigned since Saban was hired in the conference. Everyone from Ed Orgeron to Dan Mullen to Barry Odom to Steve Spurrier,
to Ed Orgeron
Bobby
again.
Johnson, Bobby Petrino, Houston. We don't have to go through John L. Smith, Gene Chizik, Joker Phillips, Derek Dooley. I mean, there are so many recognizable head coaches. Phil Fulmer, and then there's Saban up top. Since he entered, 2007 to me doesn't seem like that long ago. Personally, I don't think it seems like that long ago.
But in this regard,
but
it seems like a long time.
look at the turnover of head coaches, and think about, here's what I thought about, Chad, when I saw this. Think about the buyout money that has been spent on these guys to fire them. 24/7 putting that together.
And I believe I've seen a tweet that has that exact figure. I mean, it's a Fortune 50 company when you look at the number of the buyout for these coaches.
It does feel like a longer time ago, Hutton, when you look at it and see names like Sylvester Kroom and Bobby Johnson, who feel like they were eons
and Phil
ago.
Fulmer as a coach even. It feels so long ago.
Joker Phillips.
It feels like a long time since Les Miles was the head coach at LSU, quite frankly.
Also, honestly, that list seems even smaller. Like looking at it, it almost feels like it could be longer. Given Saban's success. And some of these programs, lack of success, others just in this sort of mediocre to good range where you're kind of in purgatory.
Yeah, they eat
when
their
you're
own.
comparing yourself with Alabama and Nick Saban.
Yep.
Well, Tennessee on there 4 times, Arkansas on there 4 times. I mean, you just look at the logos repeating
Mississippi
themselves.
State's
Ole
on there
Miss
3 times.
Is on there 4 times.
Summerlin A&M.
Auburn is
Ripped.
on there 3 times.
I mean,
And
Auburn-
Orgeron is on there twice.
Now, let's think about this with Auburn, too. In that time of Nick Saban's dominance, Auburn has won a national championship and been to another national championship game under 2 different coaches. And they've still seen 3 different coaches in that span. And they've beaten Alabama more than any other team
That's amazing success
in the Nick
for them,
Saban
really.
era.
well, keep in mind, too, this is only a list for fired or resigned. So Kiffin's not on this list.
That's true.
Right? So he's leaving for another job. A coach leaves for the NFL or leaves for another job. I was going to say a better job, but it's hard to argue in the SEC that you're getting a better job, a lateral job, we'll say. In Kiffin's case, Tennessee to Southern Cal, we know how that worked out. Point being, the list is longer of the number of coaches that have been in the conference. We're just only seeing the ones who have been fired or resigned.
Yeah, a good example is, and also conference to conference, right? Dan Mullen left Mississippi State to go to Florida. So he wasn't fired at Mississippi State,
Right,
so
yeah.
that's not on there. But that was
But he's on there for Florida.
right. Yeah, I mean, it's like Sudoku. I'm trying to put all the numbers together, and my eyes are crossing as I'm looking at the list and trying to figure it all out. Bottom line is, the SEC has seen the greatest coach of all time run through everyone else, and I mean, we can sit and blame the other schools all day long, but at the end, it's just Nick Saban is that great. And he ran everyone else off and beat everyone else.
Again, props to 24/7 Sports for that graphic, and we pulled it off of Twitter. It was eye-opening for me because it puts everything in perspective.
Yeah, that's good.
Chad, put in perspective for us what Amazon's doing at USC and the money that's going to be made with this NIL program.
Well, we go from a 24/7 sports story to an On3 sports story
Oh.
that just happened to be founded by the same guy in Shannon Terry. But On3 with a report, this is from Pete Nakos at On3. Amazon launches NIL program with officially licensed apparel. I'll try to break this down as simple as can be. They're utilizing USC as their test school, but it's not just USC athletes doing this. Basically, they've got their own apparel line. They're trying to rival Fanatics. Right now in that space, Fanatics for team merchandise is the top dog. Well, Amazon has the distribution to disrupt any market and be an immediate contender for the top spot in almost any market out there. So they're trying to be better than Fanatics at doing this. They're creating their own team apparel. It's specific to players. There's a USC football player and a USC female track star right now that has the track star has officially licensed USC track uniform that's customized with something about her on it that she's selling on Amazon. Now, how is this a big deal? They're going to get a percentage of every jersey sold. So anything sold through Amazon for that team, for that player, the individual players are going to get a cut of that. On top of that, Amazon initially is going after very highly followed athletes. So they're looking at social media follows, and they're giving them 4 to 5 figures just to tweet, to post on Instagram, to post on Facebook, links to these items that they're going to be selling. I think it's a brilliant move by Amazon. It's very simplistic and easy to figure out how it all works. And I think this is going to be a big deal for some different programs. And keep this in mind. We're talking about Alabama also. Alabama recently announced a deal with Fanatics where they're going to open their first team store online through Alabama for NIL. So Fanatics has partnered with Alabama exclusively on the Alabama team store. It'll be officially licensed Fanatics gear that's going to be personalized with players' names on it that they can sell and pay back NIL to Alabama athletes. Well, now Amazon is partnered with USC. Amazon's not going to stop there. Auburn quarterback TJ Finley. There's a Clemson basketball player that recently announced on Instagram they're partnering with Amazon on their own gear. This has a chance to be big time in NIL for a lot of athletes.
I love this. This is the spirit of name, image, likeness.
I agree with that.
Yep. This is right in line with what this was supposed to be. Where I wore a number 17 MTSU jersey in college for Clint Marks, the quarterback. He didn't make a dime off of that when I purchased it. The university got all the money. This is in the spirit of profiting off of your name, image, and likeness. So if it's simply marketing your stuff and you get a percentage of your gear, I love this.
And then
There's nothing wrong with this whatsoever.
Through your play, and you can take it further through your social media activity,
your popularity,
and how you build those accounts. You get rewards. We all buy merch of something, bands, logo of a company you like, whatever. You're right. This is more in line with the spirit of it than virtually anything we've heard about, and this doesn't involve any kind of recruitment any of that.
You get to state what it is. It's simply this. You don't have to say it's a $50,000 scholarship if you're an offensive lineman, and you don't have to say anything that doesn't.
SMU paying $36,000 to every football and basketball player. That's simple and.
Right
up front, but you're just paying athletes to enhance your ability to recruit talent to your school. Is what that is.
Why do you think they're starting with USC?
This is absolutely the spirit of name, image, likeness. I'm sure it's the Los Angeles connection, and it's hard to see how it's really just USC. That's in the first paragraph of the story, but it's TJ Finley at Auburn. It's a Clemson basketball player. There are other schools getting involved, and they are saying there's going to be a lot of brands that are going to be associated with Amazon to come. So I wouldn't say it's just USC. They're looking at USC as kind of their test study for how this is going to go and how they want to do it. They're going to smooth out some of the wrinkles with USC. Keep this in mind also, and this is coming directly from the story. Talking about Fanatics, they're the leader in the merchandise space right now for team apparel. But this is something Amazon can counter. The company can also market their NFL merchandise on their new NFL Thursday Night Football package throughout the year. That's exclusive Amazon content. And in the Big Ten's TV contract announcement, Commissioner Kevin Warren left the door open for conference games to stream on Amazon. So are we going to be watching an Amazon Prime game between Ohio State and Illinois? And during the breaks, get this C.J. Stroud officially licensed jersey at the Amazon Ohio State store, and proceeds go back to the athlete. C.J. Stroud gets part of it. The star running back for Illinois or whoever, but they could segment it out by teams, and you can start to market it that way as well.
You mentioned Amazon and Thursday Night Football. I want to pass this along. So,
by the way, nearly 200 million people visit Amazon each month. 200 million people. Anyway, continue.
They came to an agreement with DirecTV. So DirecTV will be the cable provider for Thursday Night Football for bars and restaurants and mass distribution, like at a at your local establishment. Because there was
Concern.
a number of bars saying that, hey, we don't have the ability to stream Amazon Prime we don't have the rights to do that on
A
a
massive
mega
TV.
scale, right,
Yeah.
throughout our entire building. So DirecTV is going to, I don't know if they're paying or what's going on, but Amazon is
Making it
they
possible.
came to an agreement where DirecTV will be doing that. That does not mean that it's available on DirecTV across every platform.
There's nothing that sounds easy about that, though.
No.
But for the bars, I feel like this is going to be a very complicated process to make sure you have the specific package and you're ready to go.
Well-
Opening Thursday night game of the year. You got a packed house at your town's local sports bar.
It should be
to make sure everything's in line. Okay, I've got the right pay-per-view package to distribute this throughout the bar.
Yeah.
I just feel like there's going to be a lot of problems with it. With
There
people trying to figure
should
it
be
out.
because they've done this for years with UFC pay-per-views or WWE pay-per-views, or there's a special transmission.
Don't
of
you
that
pay
that they
per
get.
capacity?
Yeah, it's based on your capacity of your
You have
establishment.
to pay them a certain amount based on how many people could get in the
Yeah,
door.
but
And
then
this
you get a
is-
special code and feed from the cable provider for that.
And this is starting week 2. The first Thursday night game is NBC, like a Sunday night football game.
Completely aside, but I just thought about this, and Hutton, you may know the answer because you're a UFC guy. When they're counting amount of pay-per-views purchased across wherever, do they include the sports bar
Yes.
capacity?
Yes.
So that's part of the number, I'm assuming.
Yeah, but I mean,
So if it's different sports
it's
bars
not-
buy it, they add up all of those
Yes.
as one individual buy for the
Yep.
capacity of those sports bars.
yes, but
Okay.
but it doesn't count as one. It counts as however many you could pack in there. But
Oh, that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
Yeah.
it
You
goes
get
up.
credit for it being full,
there
even
are
though it's
not-
not necessarily full.
Exactly.
yeah, but you're
it's
not
going to go up
ordering it.
exponentially.
You're not
that way.
ordering it unless
Unless
it's gonna
you
be
know
full
you're
because
gonna
the
get
price is not worth it for that bar.
Yeah.
To spend $7,000 on an empty house.
Yeah.
So it's a packed house if you're ordering it.
We went
'Cause
and watched a
you're
fight
likely,
one time
And it was packed.
at our old station.
Yeah, you're
as
likely
a promotional event.
you're likely charging at the door or something for these. These are the mega
Events.
pay-per-views.
I feel
right?
like it was a Mayweather fight, I think, or Pacquiao that we saw, and it was that bar made their money back that night.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was
Crowd.
loaded.
Yeah, you do some damage if you get the right fight on at the bar. And in this case, it's not costing them nearly as much. It's just coming through DirecTV. So my guess is because they're a subscriber to DirecTV, they're getting this option because Amazon wants their product visible at the sports bars. You know, no different than if you're watching NBC or CBS.
Do you remember when it was a big deal that if you stayed in a hotel that had HBO
Yes.
and you could
Yeah,
watch
free
HBO,
HBO.
and they had it on the sign, free
Pool
HBO.
and HBO. That was.
And it was, I remember going to like getting, every room would have the HBO, like the guide.
Yeah.
It was like the TV guide of HBO that was a fold out that'd be on the nightstand and you'd see what was on HBO and watch it in your room. Simpler times.
Coming up, our SEC Spotlight, we head to Florida, Gainesville, the Gators, and new head coach Billy Napier. Our preview of the Florida Gators 2022 season is next on OutKick 360. I was surprised by this. Did you know the Florida Gators offense was second in the SEC in yards per play last season?
That would surprise most.
Was stunned. They were 11th. The problem is they were 11th on defense. 11th in yards allowed per game. OutKick 360 rolls on. Our 360 SEC conversation.
They're also terribly undisciplined on both sides.
Yeah.
Many penalties.
So they scored 31 points a game last season. Can they match that number? Defensively, they allowed 27 points per game last year. That's more points than every SEC team except for Vanderbilt, Missouri, and Tennessee. Can the Gators lower that number down? We put on here the stick is around 20. Can they, on average, allow just 20 points per game? And if so, what does that mean for Billy Napier's first season as head coach in Gainesville?
It's weird to me for this team that the conversation went very quickly from how poorly he was recruiting to how Florida's going to surprise everybody this year. Look out for this guy. And I missed the transition. You're nodding, Hut.
Yeah, I agree.
Where was the transition from one to the other? Because he was getting killed for the one front. I understand it's two different baskets, but my tendency is to think if you don't come in and you don't do well at the one right off the gate, I'm not going to anoint you on the second.
Well, he's picked it up in recruiting. They're on a terrific hot streak for Florida right now, where I think they're up in the top 10 for this upcoming year. Now, that initial class was not very good.
Yeah, the first
did some things late, but yeah, his first class, which was the one right after he was hired, is not very impressive. But next year's class is looking really good. And there's big names to follow, I think, that are in the state that he's probably going to add. That photo, by the way, of him with the analyst and the team is unreal. I mean, it's 3-to-1 coaches to
60 people.
Players.
60 people.
It's we could probably find it and show it also,
to Tyler here in
but
a second.
it is nuts. Looking at this picture of the Florida team picture with the ratio of players to coaches, that to me is just silly. I understand what they're going for is that we're forming an army, and I have a plan, and Billy Napier is very big on that plan, and I know exactly how to take Florida football back to the top. And okay, but that seems a little excessive. I can't imagine everyone in that photo's got real important work they're doing in terms of analysis.
Guys, you'll have to, in the back, they'll have to Google this because I don't have access to the one photo here. It's blocking me out. I need a username, so maybe you can find it. It's 119 players on 140 staff members.
It's crazy.
That's outrageous.
I am not optimistic on Florida this year. And it's not – so it's like we were discussing yesterday, Chad, and Paul, whenever – SEC Media Day was going on, I harped on this too. I'm not optimistic on Ole Miss. But then I look at Ole Miss's schedule, and it's hard not to be optimistic about Ole Miss this year. I look at Florida's schedule opening up against Utah, then playing Kentucky,
and Tennessee,
South Florida, and then on the road in Knoxville.
Then they go to Knoxville.
That is not a favorable start for Billy Napier this season. And
then he's got LSU, Georgia, A&M back to back during the season. It's not a favorable schedule by any means.
So I look at it, Chad, and I think, well, a part of me wants to say I'm blinded by the way the car crash was viewed by all with Dan Mullen towards the end of last year. Like, I don't want to judge them based on the mess that was versus what people believe can get back on the tracks with Billy Napier, and he was a very good coach at Louisiana. But at the same time, I don't see any positives from that 4-game stretch where it ends September 24th in Knoxville. I know the history, the recent history, the long-term history between the Gators and the Vols. But opening up against Utah, a program that has
their top 10
college football playoff aspirations, that's a marquee matchup for them to be on the map, already ranked 7th, and to go on the road in Gainesville and an opportunity with a statement win right out of the chute, followed by hosting Kentucky, which has not been easy for Florida in recent years. It's always been a kind of a dogfight, bloodbath sort of game. I don't see a favorable start. In fact, I mean, I think it's conceivable they're 1-4. You could make the argument they're 1-4 going into October. So with that being said, I'm taking the questions we asked, I'm saying no to defense was terrible last year, and offensively, while I think they'll be good, can they reach 31 points per game again? They certainly have the players. Here's the photo, guys. 119 players and 140 staff members. And it looks like a marching band behind them. It looks like the band and the team got together for a group photo.
Team looks tiny. It's if you're listening, so the players in the uniforms with the white numbers surrounded by the staff in blue polo shirts, but the staff is up the side and across the back. And I mean, it's half. It looks like half and half the ratio in this picture.
Yeah.
It's almost like a private school sales pitch. Hey, you come here, and then the elementary school, or elementary wing, it's 7-to-1 student to teacher ratio. At Florida, if you come play football here, it's 2-to-1 coach to player ratio. You're going to have two individual player coaches for every player on the roster. You'll have two coaches coach you at all times.
Position coach
for every one player.
Plus,
it's ridiculous. If Florida is going to exceed expectations this year, a couple things are going to have to happen. Anthony Richardson has to be great, and he has to be great in Billy Napier's offense right off the bat. Billy Napier's offense, he's a good offensive coach. This is not some cutting-edge, fast-paced, spread option type attack. They're going to run, and they're going to run heavy at you. But they're going to do it from some interesting formations and do some different things with it. So it is a run-heavy attack, almost pro-style, but not really. He's a good offensive coach, and they're going to do some cool things offensively, but it's not what you think of when you think of offensive innovator in college football. With Billy Napier, Richardson has to be great, and he's got two guys coming from Louisiana that played for him there that have to contribute immediately. Osiris Torrance may be their best offensive lineman. He's an NFL quality pick. He's transferring over from Louisiana. And Montrell Johnson has 3 or 4 years left of eligibility.
He's a sophomore.
Yeah, he was a great freshman player, running back for Florida. He was turning heads in spring. He may be their starting running back right off the bat. So on offense, obviously the quarterback, Anthony Richardson, then a couple of Louisiana transfers, maybe two of their better players. They've got talent, but there was something missing a year ago. And if you want to argue that the one thing missing was good leadership from the head coach and Dan Mullen, who up until then had a great track record the year before.
3 straight years
in fact,
of New Year's Day Bowls,
took them to Atlanta.
And then it crumbled.
They won the SEC East the year before and played Alabama in a pretty good game in Atlanta in the SEC
Championship. I can't wait to find
out
about what happened to disintegrate behind the scenes, because the three of us, we had Dan Mullen on like a decade ago. This was, was it maybe not that long ago? Whenever the job was open in in Los Angeles, when Fisher was fired, going into that offseason, and McVay had not been hired yet, he was openly campaigning for the job. Like, hey, do you want to coach in the NFL? Yes, I would love to coach the Rams. Like, we didn't even mention the Rams. Yes, I'd love to coach the Rams.
I've been taking a long look at their roster, and I think they really got something there.
He's not. He just does not come across as a guy that just goes off the rails. To me, anyway, it's peculiar how things ended in Gainesville.
The other thing they're missing,
and that's why I'm not buying. It's just, now we got a real coach in, and it's going to completely turn everything around. That's not a knock at Billy Napier. I just have a hard time believing that Dan Mullen let it fall apart to the point that one coaching regime change, and a year later, and suddenly they're competing with Georgia again at the top of the East.
They get 13 of 53 touchdowns back. So in the turnover, not the football turnover department, in the people turnover department, they've got a lot of scoring to fill in.
And that's not to say, by the way, that Mullen was great. Was it the Bama game where he made some odd choices, even though it was a close game, like some
they should have won
game management decisions, or was it later in the season? Yeah, they should have won that game. And
well,
just thinking back, there were
it got bad in a hurry. When they lost, I remember, Hutton, we were at the Alabama-LSU game in early November when we looked down and saw them lose badly to South Carolina, and I thought, he may be done. That was the first time I truly believed that he was going to get fired, and then they lose to Missouri a week or two later, and he is fired.
So where do you have Florida stacking up in 2022 in the East? I have them behind Kentucky. I have them behind Tennessee. I have them behind Georgia, of course.
I don't think they're as good as Kentucky or Tennessee. I think both Kentucky and Tennessee should beat them this year, but you mentioned the history with Tennessee.
Right.
That is one that they seemingly cannot get over the hump, and it took everything under the sun thrown at Florida to finally get over the hump in 2016, and that was 6 years ago, the last time Tennessee was able to beat them in Knoxville. But I think just on paper, with who's coming back and stability at coach, I give a slight edge to both. I think they're fourth. I think they're ahead of South Carolina. I think the ultimate X factor is Spencer Rattler there. To me, there's
just like it is Richardson.
There is in the East. There is a clear number 1 in Georgia, and there's a clear 6 and 7 Missouri, Vandy.
Yes,
I think it's musical chairs with the other
2 through 5.
Yes, yeah, the other 4. I think you could make a case for any of them finishing 2nd or 5th.
Look at this team against Utah, Kentucky, Tennessee, LSU, Georgia, A&M. How many of those are they winning? I think they're in trouble.
Tennessee, go ahead and mark that down as a W.
I think a lot of people believe.
But outside of that, I mean, yeah, it's gonna be tough.
I'm hesitant to pick Florida outright in the matchup against Utah because of what, and this lingers with me. The way UCLA punked LSU last year. They never see the Pac-12 out physical an SEC opponent like LSU. I would put Florida on that same bar. And I think a lot of people, the gambling public, thinks that Utah is coming in with some finesse style and that Florida's going to push them around up front. I don't buy that.
No, they're going to hand the ball off.
Utah's legit.
And because of that, I think that's one I'm staying away from, at least as I sit here today. And then you start thinking about what Kentucky can possibly do with Will Levis and their run game. I'm guessing Rodriguez is the guy there. We haven't heard anything, right, on the suspension.
No, he's going to be it was announced it's going to be either 2 or 3 games. That was a report. I don't think Stoops has said it.
Okay.
But everyone immediately said, good for Stoops because he's not going to play the Florida game, which everybody thought that he'd miraculously come back for Florida. But he's definitely missing Florida.
That changes.
Maybe game 3 also.
That changes the dynamic there because he's arguably the best running back in the conference. He's right there. And then Tennessee. This is Tennessee's year to get them.
Yeah.
So conceivably.
The following year, they'll be breaking in a new quarterback. Tennessee will, one way or the other.
Yep.
And they'll be in the swamp. This is a home game. And if Florida is 0-2, limping into that Tennessee game, I think that they may have an easy South Florida.
They have South Florida right before.
Let's say they're 1-2 heading into that game. I mean, that's even if Tennessee were to go on the road and lose to a top 20 Pitt team in a close game, I'd still think advantage Tennessee with a 1-2 Florida team coming in to that game.
Many are thinking back to last year's
Tennessee
game.
would be
Keep
2-1. They play Akron, I think, in week 3.
That's when Hendon Hooker came in and took over, and then the following week after Florida is when they put up 63 on Missouri.
Yeah.
So that's when they took off, but it didn't happen in Gainesville. Joe Milton started that game, and then Hooker finished. And then they were off to this version of
never
what they
looked
are.
back from that point on.
So, yeah, I think I have them just pinpointed somewhere 4th or 5th in the East. And that's probably me undervaluing them a great degree. But I don't see it being an easy road for Billy Napier in year 1. And I know recruiting's been better. I think he's a very good coach. But this is not some remove Mullen, insert Napier, and everything's great. Even though I think Anthony Richardson has the chance to be.
As weird as it sounds, I think the Utah-Florida game is got the makings of a program win for Utah.
Yeah.
That sounds weird talking about the 2 programs. This is a program type. We know what we're doing. We know who we are. We have an identity. We've got a coach that's been here. I think he's the 2nd or 3rd longest tenured head coach in major college football now, in Kyle Whittingham. That's a program win for Utah in that game. And it's a lesson for the first game for Billy Napier and what he wants to establish at Florida. It feels that way to me with what Utah should go into the swamp and do.
They are chock full of talent in the secondary at Florida, but very young. Sophomores.
Jason Marshall.
Has Florida ever had a secondary that's not super talented?
Yeah,
I feel like
fair.
going back 25 years, there's always,
they always
2
have
NFL draft picks or potential ones in the secondary.
And they always have that veteran safety at Florida too, don't they?
Yes.
Trey Dean, I believe, is still there. He's been there forever. And then others back there too. Imagine this. Imagine if Florida wins against Utah and Kentucky. and the magnitude of that Tennessee game.
They got massive buzz.
Yeah,
if they
Then
do
it's,
that.
I mean, then that game is for, at that point in the season, conceivably second in the
place.
East. You're thinking that's a playoff game to finish second behind Georgia. A lot of things have to happen after that, obviously, that early in the year. But depending on how Tennessee looks in the first 2 weeks, and then if Florida's coming in at 2-0, 3-0, yeah, that could very well be 3-0 versus 3-0 in Knoxville, and everybody thinking this is the program that's going to next challenge Georgia. If not this year, they're on their way to challenging them.
Coming up, a set of identical twins married another set of identical twins, and the result has troubled Paul. That's next on OutKick 360. One set of identical twins married another set of identical twins. OutKick 360 rolls on.
That's it. That's the story.
There you go.
So then,
That's
Paul,
it. All right, guys. Good show today. All right, we just said it. We said it all right there.
What caught your attention here other than them looking identical?
then they each have babies, boys, sons, and these sons are in the natural course of events cousins.
Look at these guys.
But
Look at
they're
these guys
also
over here.
genetically
It's like you just flipped the screen on them. To me. This is weird.
genetically they are brothers. They're cousins, but genetically the same as brothers. That kind of freaks me out. If you're an identical twin, with all that accompanies, I would think that you would want to get away from other identical twins, at least in the realm of dating.
Well, so I've always thought about this. There's a lot of identical twins in the Withrow family. I think there's 4 sets right now. There's been more.
All identical.
All identical. My dad's an identical twin. So skips a generation. I've got younger cousins, 2 girls in their 20s that are identical twins. I've got a cousin set that's of my generation that are in their 30s, 2 girls who are twins in the family. But the way I've always viewed it, the way you just said it, Paul, brothers and cousins, genetically, my dad's identical twin has a son and a daughter. So genetically, I have all half brothers and sisters, 4 of them. Well, I'm half brother and sister to them genetically. Our dads share the same identical twin genetic code.
Right.
So they're my cousins, but it's also my half sister and half brother.
That is hard to get one's head around.
Yeah. So, but what's weird about it is I have as much genetically in common with my 2 cousins as I do any of my brothers and sisters. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
We have on all of them, regardless. So I kind of have 6 brothers and sisters, if you look at it that way.
And these would not be kissing cousins because they are brothers.
Well, the other thing that surprised me is I would have been way low on this guess if you said how many families have this same setup. According to the article, Metro, the UK, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
300. There are 300 families like this in the world currently.
Who did
Think
the
about-
idents marrying idents.
Think about the level of competition. If like everyone, you're looking at every pound gained, every difference in appearance, who's aging quicker, like just mentally, if everyone's married to the same, you're married to someone and she's saying your identical twin is in way better shape than you. Like that's weird. My sister got the better end of this deal. He makes more money. He's smarter. He's this.
Yeah.
As you age, you're going to age differently. And it's like, man, you would be really driven to keep up with your identical twin and not let them pass you in appearance, in smarts and everything else.
I would think,
but also you've got this driver of you're married to an identical twin. So there's that constant rivalry.
They're also way too into this. Maybe it's cool. I think it's weird. They proposed to these women at the same time. And they were married in Twinsburg, Ohio, wearing identical dresses.
yeah, it's a little much. I don't know. I just find the whole thing that brothers who are cousins
they each got
freaks
pregnant
me
at the
out.
same
There's nothing
time,
wrong with it.
right? Based on this photo.
Right. Yeah. So they're living a dual life. Look, I would get married
all in the same
in this
room?
situation
Probably.
for the laughs, right? I mean, they could play tricks on people constantly. You just doubled your tricks. You already had it with your sister where you could do incredible things, right? Where you could go and, she could come fill in for you to finish your date and stuff like that. But now you've got it with the husbands as well. I mean, you could do a TV show on this. I'm surprised it's not on TV.
Maybe I'm just wired differently, but I just immediately think about how competitive I would be in every situation with the twin, especially with 2 women competing and then talking about wanting to be looking better, all of that
They're
for
very
the
loving.
other twin.
They're very loving and accepting of each other. There's no one closer than
guess.
twins. That's what I hear.
They have way more love in their heart than me.
The latest on NFL joint practices, including Cardinals and Titans, next.
Hey, listen, if you missed my show, don't at me. I've got you covered. Take a look. I say this. You're 23 years old. you're built like Chase Young, you're probably going to heal. Like, you're probably going to heal really easily because you're kind of a stud. You are. You're kind of a stud. You remind me, I don't know, a little of myself. Among the addresses that received notices were the $18 million Hidden Hills property listed under the name of Dwayne Wade that exceeded its allocated water budget in June by more than 1,400%, or 90,000 gallons. That's an improvement over May, when the property exceeded its budget by 489,000 gallons.
You have to look at this guy as not only a liar, but someone who was so desperate for control late in his career, so much during COVID. He led the country astray on so many issues. He was deceitful. And the worst of all is he tried to play the victim later on. He still is, about how people attacked him. And when you attack him, it's an attack on science.
So don't miss out on tomorrow's show for more opinion and straight talk that everybody else is afraid to say out loud. Join me 9 to 11 Eastern Time at OutKick.com.
Just like that, the final hour is here on this Wednesday edition. OutKick 360.
Show has flown by today.
Across the OutKick Network. 6th and Peabody, our location, with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Come hang out with us. Grab a drink, get some tacos. White Duck Taco Shop while you're here. Daddy's Dogs, and much more. 6th and Peabody, downtown Nashville, the next time you're in Music City.
Random question for you guys. Watching HBO Real Sports last night, they had a piece on two guys in the UK that have invented a jetpack, different forms of a jetpack, where they believe that one of the next extreme sports will be racing in the air with men on jetpacks and women racing each other NASCAR style in the air. And these are two just individual inventors. They don't share their information because they're trying to beat the other one with their prototype. And it shows them flying on these jetpacks, but also shows all the trial and error of them hurting themselves badly, crashing and burning, trying to get the engine right. And this one guy actually has engines that you put on like gloves, and you can maneuver yourself like Iron Man through the air with the engines, and it's fire coming out of it, and you're turning and you're going different directions and all these things. What level of security would you need? How many years into a jetpack program would you need to be before you put one of those bad boys on and decide to try to fly through the air like a bird?
I'm going to wait until we know it's safe. But this story pisses me off because we're jumping to racing. Let's get to transport. We got traffic problems.
Yeah.
I want a jetpack to be able to get from here home and from home to the Titans. I don't want NASCAR jetpacks. I want transportation. Go the regular cars, then do the race cars later.
I'm with you, Paul. The first thing I thought was this is what they're doing now with drone delivery and how they can make that happen. If you could have some sort of similar function for humans to be transported that quickly somewhere through the air, over everything, it would be extremely terrifying.
Now, I'll be tempted to do that.
But it would be
because I want to get over a traffic jam.
It would be freeing if you were just flying over the interstate and heading home, not that far above car level the whole way. That'd be pretty cool.
We're due for that. By the way, we're way behind on time, transport, and jetpacks. Way behind.
They're 10 years away. That they both acknowledge we're 10 years from really getting to the level that we'd be comfortable rolling out to the public.
What about time travel? Where are we on that?
I don't know. Are there any initiatives going on with time travel? I don't know if anyone's really out there trying to make that work anymore.
When Simon was a younger dreamer, that was what he was going to do, time travel. But I'm not hearing much about that now.
It reminds me, you bring up jetpack. I can't find the lyrics, but Tim Wilson, I believe he's the late Tim Wilson from Bob and Tom Show, who had the song. It was right after, it was like 2010 or something, maybe right before that. But he wrote this song about growing up in his era. He's probably at the time he's 50 or 60, and he had all these questions were answered. And he goes, "I just have one more. Where the F is my jetpack?" You promised me all these things. Where is my jetpack?
Well, the first ever, that's great.
I waited this long.
The first appearance of a jetpack was in a James Bond movie in, I think, 1966 with Sean Connery, where he used a jetpack to get away from a villain. And the first time that the public really saw the jetpack was, I think, the first Super Bowl. There was a guy on a jetpack that did something that flew around the stadium.
That sounds familiar.
The halftime show. So,
have you guys seen
it's on its way.
It's not a jetpack. It's one of those water powered deals.
Yeah.
And the news anchor is doing like a live hit on the lake or somewhere.
It's going crazy.
And they're like, "Hey, coming up this morning, we've got so and we're gonna check out the jetpack," or whatever they called it. And this guy takes off, and he I guess he throttled too low, and it just he just dove nose first straight into the lake.
I haven't even seen it, but the description is cracking me up because I can imagine it.
It was a live promo. Coming up in 2 minutes, we're going to be live on the lake, and just bam, he just nosedives.
We're out here on Lake Lanier today. It's a beautiful day for jetpacking. We'll be back with the weather after this. Straight into the water.
Today was not a great day for the Tennessee Titans against the Arizona Cardinals in a joint practice. The offense was not sharp, and that's me being polite. It was a disastrous day. You don't really feel like much was accomplished, Paul. Like Chad, I would describe it as going into the week, they knew they were not going to practice tomorrow against one another. I bet Vrabel would love to practice against the Cardinals again tomorrow, based on the results of today.
Yeah, I can imagine the entire offense would want that for Tennessee for sure. I mean, it's just penalties, drops, miscommunications, and the Cardinals were throwing some blitz stuff at them that they weren't ready for. You've got to adjust to that in the moment, following the rules that are prescribed in your head with every defense that's called. You don't often have to do that. This is what they were saying, don't overreact to this one thing. Tannehill and Lewan said that, and Vrabel kind of concurred, that you don't.
Lewan said, guys, today was not the Boston Massacre. He's like, I don't need to.
Let's not cast it.
Yeah,
as that.
I know my history. Today was just a practice. We only went about, we only practiced against him for about half the time. It's not that big of a deal.
It was not the Boston Massacre. It's great.
But I mean, if you're looking for film,
we've seen disaster out there. That wasn't it today.
If you're looking
let me tell you.
If you're looking for tape to break down and say, like, all right, when this happens, we need to be ready for X, Y, and Z, they got a lot of that today.
Oh, yeah. If you're looking for a light at the end of the tunnel or look on the bright side, the optimist, yeah, they got a lot of corrections, and that's a great thing that they can go on tape and see things they haven't made mistakes with before. The backup receivers, though, continue to be fairly consistent. They need their starters to play like starters. But Nick Westbrook-Akine, they've got Mason Kinsey, who always does just enough to get his name mentioned, and that's a compliment to him. He's in the mix, even though he's a practice squad guy. He's in the mix always. Beyond that, maybe some Destin Patrick had a couple of catches today, but again, nothing
miscommunication.
Nothing consistent from him.
Kyle Phillips had a couple mistakes, and he dropped some punts today from Ryan Stonehouse, his own punter, the rookie who's competing with Brett Kern. But Phillips is legit. Tannehill's confident in him. He's going to throw to him without hesitation.
He's on the field.
This guy is going to get snaps, unquestioned.
How has Woods?
He's
been?
Also a special teams weapon.
Yeah.
He's looked really good there. Also,
how has Woods been?
Woods, has been consistent, but he's not been he wasn't in this team stuff today. And so there's still, the knee has never risen to be an issue, but they've also, given him some limitations in terms of how many snaps he gets. Derrick Henry, is a surprise that he got some runs with the first team offense in some of this stuff early.
I wrote it OutKick.
And usually you don't see him at all.
Back in June. I don't believe they plan on using Derrick Henry any less than they did last year.
I don't either.
And you start looking at the start of the season for them, they're searching for consistency at right tackle. At times, you'll want help on both sides. I think they're going to load up too tight. That's going to be their base offense, unlike last year when Downing was known for playing 11 personnel in Oakland. He played a lot of 11 personnel here. In his first year calling plays for the Titans. I think they get back to what they did so well in 2020, which is more 12, two tight ends in that personnel with Chigakwankwo, and then their number one tight end in Austin Hooper. I'm going to touch on in a moment. But I think they're going to give the ball early and often to Derrick Henry to help stabilize the offense while we wait on the offensive line to come together. And while they wait on these new pieces on offense, Hooper, Robert Woods, Traylon Burks, who is very inconsistent on when he's available and what he's doing. He has one preseason catch. That, in part, is due to who he's on the field with at quarterback, and Malik Willis, who wouldn't pull the trigger in Baltimore and did some, but not nearly enough this past week in preseason action against Tampa. And I think because of that, Paul, they're going to load up and just go with the run and go with kind of the same game plan as last year.
I think so. And the defense, which stands to be better, though it's time to start wondering about Danico Autry, who has done the least in this camp of anybody that they're counting on. Very limited action, and I saw him today early working with a coach one-on-one. And
I think he's okay.
He's got a very highly taped right wrist, which is the first I've seen of that. I think he's okay, too, but it's interesting that he's been the guy, and we haven't talked much about the fact that he's not in the mix there. Hasn't been so far. With the tight end thing, another factor here, and we know Tim Kelly likes two tight ends. He was spearheaded that a lot for the Texans. He's working with the tight ends. He looks like the tight ends coach over Luke Steckel, but they're working together with the tight ends at any rate. I put out a video today. They did a drill during individual where the tight ends were taking on one of those two coaches and basically throwing them back to land on a big cushion pad. But Kelly has a super understanding of those tight ends, I would think, because he's working with them on a micro level, not just in the macro level of the passing game coordinator, but as what looks like a co-tight end coach.
Here is the big difference between Todd Downing and Arthur Smith and what I think they need to get back to, because they set some offensive records as a franchise in 2020. And Tannehill was extremely good in 2020. Last season, they ran 228 offensive plays 92 pass plays out of 12 personnel. Compare that to 2020, 152 pass plays out of 12 personnel and a total of 350 snaps on 2 tight. They averaged in 2020 145 yards of total offense per game in 12 personnel. Last year, it was 69 yards per game. So that's
significant.
That is a huge drop-off. Now, 11 personnel last year, 659 total snaps. 422 of those snaps were passes. They allowed 38 sacks. I think that's standard. Most of your sacks are going to come when you're not in mass protect, which you can do in 12. But compare that to what Arthur Smith did in 2020. Again, last year, 11 personnel, 659 total plays. 2020 with Arthur Smith, 406 offensive plays in 11, 251 pass plays to 422 last year. That's got to flip.
And another root of this, you hate to keep going back to it, is the absence of A.J. Brown, right? They don't have a reason to have 3 wide receivers on the field. Last year, they felt like they had those receivers. This year, they clearly don't. Plus, they have 2 new tight ends in Hooper and Okonkwo. So you're talking about personnel change. But today, Hutton, and we haven't mentioned it, we talked twice now about how bad the 2-minute offense was. And it was a dink and dunk thing that came apart and didn't work. But what was missing there, the thing that can fix all of that, is one big play downfield or one guy who sheds some tackles in yak, and that guy's A.J. Brown, and there's no replacement for that right now. You know, they hope Burks becomes that. Woods is not that. I'm not saying these guys aren't going to make big plays. But that big playmaker who you think, well, things are going really bad in this 2-minute drive, but one pass to A.J. Brown could get them out of this trouble, get them not just a first down, right, but get them a chunk play where they flip the field and they're 30 yards downfield and they're okay in 2 minutes. That doesn't exist right now.
The day we came in, we were outside at 6 and Peabody after they traded him, and I said, they have just traded away their game breaker. When you needed we can look at a number on a sheet of paper. What they're not going to quantify are the game-changing plays he made to set up a game-winning field goal in Houston, or the one-handed trapeze artist-like catch he made against Jacksonville down the sideline. That was a slugfest, like a 6-3 game, and then he breaks it open. A catch and run over the middle that gains more than just 13 yards, but he's able to keep a drive alive on a 4th down play. What he did against San Francisco last year on Thursday Night Football.
He won the game.
Second half. Won the game.
I mean, there are many examples, even back to his rookie season, where if he didn't take over a game, he took over a moment that stacks up and allows the Titans to continue to win despite them having no business being the number 1 seed a year ago with their injury concerns and how they were depleted and how many players came through that locker room. They don't necessarily have to replace in one player A.J. Brown's production. But Treylon Burks needs to come in and replace some of those big moments.
Explosives.
He came up with some massive plays at Arkansas, and he's built in a very similar frame to A.J. Tannehill, to what Paul's saying, Chad, whenever he would need a big play, he would throw it up. He would allow A.J. to come down with the football and make a play. And while you may not be able to replicate 1,200 yards receiving or whatever number you want to put on it, they have to have some game-changing moments at the wide receiver border on the numbers aspect of the field, because that's what A.J. gave you.
Well, and it's Treylon Burks is the most likely candidate for where he was drafted and his skill set at Arkansas. They're gonna need Robert Woods. They're going to need this is going to have to be by committee in terms of big moment stealing for this team. I don't. You said it, Hutton. We're not going to have that in one player to replace A.J. Brown and that ability that
doesn't
he had.
Look like it.
But they're going to need the committee to step up and be capable of rising to the occasion with those big moments.
And you can have both.
I'm not sitting here saying they can't. We saw Treylon Burks do that at Arkansas.
We just haven't seen it yet here.
We need to see it here, and I think that Woods is capable also of making some big plays for this team. So between the two of them, could you get to a level approaching those moments from A.J. Brown? That's the big question mark.
But I'll say by committee. I never want by committee as opposed to by individual if I could get the individual. It's a stars league. You want one guy that can do it. You'd like multiple guys that can do it, but that singularity of it as opposed to asking for a whole group to combine to do it are two vastly different things. I'm not arguing with your idea that if they get it, they're going to get it from multiple people.
And this is not just about last year. I mean, even in 2020, you can still have a superb passing attack and have a 2,000-yard rusher. I mean, AJ was an 1,100-yard receiver the same year that Henry rushed for 2,000. So it's not unheard of. They put together a great package of offense 2 years ago. They need a similar version of that. Hooper is one of the players. Correct me if I'm wrong, Paul. I don't recall not seeing Austin Hooper on the practice field.
Yeah, I think Hooper's been out there every day. Not even a forced veteran day off.
Yeah, and I think that's intentional with him
and
and
worked
Tannehill.
a ton during those special teams periods where the quarterbacks have no obligations. They're standing around with Downing and with Kelly, and invariably Hooper has been there, and Woods often as well.
From the Titans and Cardinals to let's go to Knoxville, where the Vols are about to hit game week. Starting tomorrow, it'll be officially game week for the Tennessee Volunteers. What's the one biggest concern, Chad, that you have as we are now 8 days away from kickoff?
Brew McCoy's eligibility status, because he's a starting wide receiver right now for Tennessee. And what we saw a year ago with this Tennessee coaching staff is they don't play a lot of guys. When they get confident with a three-pack of receivers, they're going to run them out there and play them a lot. Now, that could be a byproduct of a lack of depth of the position a year ago. Could be a byproduct of Cedric Tillman, Javonte Payton, Velus Jones Jr. were just that much better than the next guys in the rotation, so they kept them out there the majority of the time. Either way, the three best receivers right now for Tennessee are Cedric Tillman, who is in line for a monster season, Jalen Hyatt, who was a big-time recruit that has shown some promise but not delivered on expectations yet, but looks a lot better going into this season. He'll be in the slot. Their third receiver is Brew McCoy. He's the other outside receiver opposite of Cedric Tillman. So knowing whether or not he's going to be able to play, starting with game one against Ball State, that's a big one for Tennessee. That's the biggest question mark I have with this team. And then just in general, everyone wants to talk about this team being deeper and on the practice field looking like they've improved their depth, and they have through another year of recruiting. Is Josh Heupel going to use that depth? I think there were times a year ago, guys, where he was way too reluctant in blowout games to get his starters out of the game. Hendon Hooker does not need to be playing in the fourth quarter when the game has been decided for over a quarter and a half against Missouri, for example. I think there were times that he was way too slow to get some guys out and get some guys some time and experience. That's a big part of it also. I'm going to be watching this Ball State game, a game Tennessee should handle with ease, but I want to see how quickly he gets some guys rotated in to this game to not just hand the ball off and run the clock out, but to see what you have, to get some guys some experience, because when you get into the meat of that SEC schedule in late October, you're going to need all that depth, and you're going to need fresh bodies, especially when you're snapping the ball every 6 seconds.
I'm eager to see how Hendon Hooker in year two of this offense is able to use the clock and game management to Tennessee's favor, because I think that now becomes easier as he's been entrenched in this Heupel offense. And I think that's where I believe that's what Heupel means when he says can the offense be better or faster than it was a year ago? He goes, well, yes, we can be more efficient in certain areas. I think that's where the efficiency really takes an uptick, is with the quarterback in certain moments, 2-minute drill, or if you get to the line and you need to run a bit of clock, right? Like if their version of a 4-minute offense might be winding the clock down an extra 20 seconds before you snap it. Like I think the veteran savvy of Hooker there in year two of this offense, which fits him very well, I think we see that early and often against Ball State a week from tomorrow. So Ball State comes to Tennessee. That kicks off next week's week one of college football. Of course, Vanderbilt and Hawaii will kick off this Saturday night at 9 o'clock Eastern. Louisiana Tech visits Missouri. So you got Tennessee and Missouri both playing on Thursday night on September the 1st to kick off week one. The other conference slate of games, A&M and Sam Houston Arkansas, Cincinnati, Georgia, and Oregon. Both of those games kicking off at the same time at 3:30 Eastern on ESPN and ABC.
Big time to be watching some games.
Ole Miss and Troy, Vanderbilt and Elon. Auburn takes on Mercer. Kentucky will host Miami of Ohio. Florida hosts number 7 Utah, the Pac-12 favorite to win the
That's
championship.
a night game,
That's
right?
worth watching.
7 o'clock under the lights on ESPN in Gainesville at the Swamp. Mississippi State and Memphis. That was a great game last year that was screwed. They were screwed over by the officials late in the fourth quarter on that kickoff return. Mississippi State now gets Memphis at home this year. That's on ESPNU. South Carolina, Georgia State, Alabama, Utah State. Those are your games for Saturday, September 3rd. And I should also throw in there LSU, Florida State. They play on Sunday, September the 4th, a night game on ABC at the Superdome.
Also, a nice little break for Utah to get a night game in the Swamp at this point of the year.
Yeah, that's a good
because
point.
that's a big difference going from the elevation of Salt Lake City, cooler air, and then going to the Swamp and all that heat and humidity. Playing at 2:30 versus playing at 7 o'clock is a big difference for that one. And to get the college football season kicked off right, we'll actually be in Knoxville next Thursday with a show at Old City Sports Bar. We'll be telling you more about getting you ready for all the college football games over the weekend. We'll just happen to be in a town where a game will be played that night between Tennessee and Ball State.
Geoff Clark with OutKick Bets joins us next from OutKick.com on OutKick 360.
Hey, listen, if you missed my show, don't at me. I've got you covered. Take a look. I say this. You're 23 years old. You're built like Chase Young. You're probably going to heal. You're probably going to heal really easily because you're kind of a stud. You are. You're kind of a stud. You remind me, a little of myself. Among the addresses that received notices were the 18 million Hidden Hills property listed under the name of Dwayne Wade that exceeded its allocated water budget in June by more than 1,400% or 90,000 gallons. That's an improvement over May when the property exceeded its budget by 489,000 gallons.
You have to look at this guy as not only a liar, but someone who was so desperate for control late in his career, so much during COVID. He led the country astray on so many issues. He was deceitful. And the worst of all is he tried to play the victim later on. He still is about how people attacked him. And when you attack him, it's an attack on science.
So don't miss out on tomorrow's show for more opinion and straight talk that everybody else is afraid to say out loud. Join me 9 to 11 Eastern time at OutKick.com.
DraftKings.com with an excellent offer for you for new users. You can download the DraftKings app. You bet $5 to get $200 instantly for all new DraftKings users. You must be 21 years or older, and this is for first-time DraftKings Sportsbook customers only. Make a deposit of at least $5 in your Sportsbook account, then wager at least $5 on NFL or college football games between now and Week 2 of the NFL season, which runs through September 19th. By doing that, you'll receive $200 instantly, in addition to any cash winnings from your original wager once it settles. We need to figure out on OutKick 360 how we're going to wager Week 1 of the college football season and NFL for that matter. And with more, Geoff Clark joins us, OutKick Bets, OutKick.com. Geoff, great to have you on board, man. Hope you're well.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, fellas. I'm excited to be talking football with you. Only a couple more work days here until we can finally gamble on some football. There's light at the end of the tunnel. I might be overcome with emotion come Saturday, but I am pretty excited for this upcoming weekend.
What's your favorite bet so far for Week 1 of college football, or Week 0, we should say, this Saturday? Which one jumps out to you the most?
Well, most of my college football handicapping is within the Power 5 conferences. So I'm looking at that Nebraska Northwestern matchup that's going to be in Ireland. The only, I think, Power 5 matchup of the opening weekend of college football. I don't want to say Week 0. I know that will possibly get you guys frustrated.
Same.
But, I lean towards Northwestern plus the points, but I placed a bet earlier this morning on the under 49.5. That's my favorite look in that game. We are getting the worst of the number by far, which really stinks. It opened at 55.5 at Circa, which is a major market-making sports book out in Vegas. But I think there's value in this number all the way down to 48. As we know, Nebraska's been very disappointing under Scott Frost. This is his 5th season, and he's fighting to keep his job and to protect his spot over there at Nebraska. They've pretty much overhauled most of the offensive personnel. They brought in Mark Whipple from Pittsburgh, and a lateral move from Mark Whipple. And they go from Adrian Martinez to Texas transfer Casey Thompson. Now, Casey Thompson has a lot more upside and is a lot better of a quarterback and is upgrade over Adrian Martinez. But the fact of the matter is they pretty much revolved that entire offense around Adrian Martinez. So they're going to have to revamp it around the new quarterback and a new system. And that's going to take time. And based on what we've seen out of Scott Frost thus far in his Nebraska tenure, I don't trust him to have Nebraska's offense clicking on all cylinders come the opening weekend. So that's one of the reasons why I like the under. Also, Nebraska did lose. They're all Big Ten center. They're all Big Ten tight end, and they're deep threat wide receiver. But over to Northwestern, their offense is just pretty terrible, right? They're not going to help out the over here very much. And but what they can do on offense, their I guess strength on offense, probably their offensive line, right? They're returning 4 offensive linemen starters, most notably the left tackle, who's projected to go in the first half of the first round. So I think Northwestern is going to be able to eat the clock, run the ball, control the clock, and control the pace of this game. And because of their weak quarterback and weak offense, I don't expect them to be hitting pay dirt very often. So I think there's going to be a lot of running clock or a lot of offensive miscues, and I think this number does fall short of the total. And there are a lot of trends supporting that as well. But I do ultimately like this game to go under 49.5.
Geoff, let's stay in the Big Ten since we started there with that game. Are there any win-loss over-unders right now that jump out to you across the conference that you would be jumping on right now when you look at the Big Ten?
At the Big Ten, not really, to be honest. I mean, the only I have one conference play that I think would fit into the show one conference winner that I'd love to talk to you guys about. Yeah. But honestly, if I was to play Like I don't really like the win total price points here in the Big Ten. I know this sounds like a square play. I'm going to follow it up with an even squarer play, but like the Georgia to win their division, Alabama to win their division, and Ohio State to win their division. If you parlay all three of those, it's minus 128. I don't know, minus 120 over at DraftKings. I don't know which one of those teams loses out. Sorry, I don't have a better answer for your Big Ten
Well, that's
win-loss.
good. That also tells you where we are in college football, where you can parlay those three, and the odds are still against you.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of another no-brainer we can throw on top of that also, see if we can get even a little better odds on it. But I like those three.
How do you feel about Utah traveling in Week 1 to Gainesville against Florida? Right now, the Gators are getting 2.5 points. It opened, I believe, at 1.5. Many people are, at least in the Southeast region, thinking that Florida is the more physical of the two teams, and that's why they may look to take the Gators outright. I said earlier, Geoff, I'm not buying it, and I think Utah's worth the hype right now.
I'm not buying that either. Florida obviously is changed their head coach. Went to Billy Napier, who I think could be an improvement and could have Florida going in the right direction eventually. But Utah is one of the more underrated programs in college football. Kyle Whittingham has had that program an elite status for a long time here. So, and they're coming in with a whole bunch of talent. The kid Cameron Rising could play a little bit. The running back they have, I think Tavian Thomas is his name, could play a little bit. You said Florida is only getting 2.5 right now at home.
Yep.
That's kind of concerning because I would have that more towards Utah minus 3.5. It feels like a trap, right? But I maybe wouldn't want to overthink it and just take Utah to win by a field goal there. Feels like a pretty good look. I know there's like the SEC boost in the betting market, but I do also ultimately think Utah is underrated. Saying that though, and actually contrary to it, you guys might be pretty disappointed in this. And this, I'm looking for some feedback here, even though I already have the bet in my account. But I'm taking USC plus 220 to win the Pac-12. I think it's a question. I believe it's a question of when, not if, Lincoln Riley and USC just dominates the Pac-12. Obviously, and as I just said, Kyle Whittingham is a star or is an awesome coach. Utah is an underrated program, but I think Lincoln Riley is going to be an immediate success at the Pac-12, just like he was in the Big 12. The Pac-12 is by far the softest conference out of the Power Five in college football. And what really excites me about Lincoln Riley going to USC is what he did in his first 3 years for Oklahoma. Granted, he inherited a much better program from Bob Stoops than he's getting from Clay Helton at USC. But in his first 3 years at Oklahoma, they won 3 Big 12 titles and made the college football playoffs 3 times. He had all three quarterbacks were Heisman finalists. The first 2 won the Heisman. I'm talking about Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, and then Jalen Hurts, of course. And then Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray both went first in the draft. And all 3 of them started an NFL playoff game already. So the way I interpret that is essentially Lincoln Riley is a quarterback whisperer. He brought Caleb Williams with him over from Oklahoma. Caleb Williams broke Trevor Lawrence's PFF record grade as a freshman. They also brought the Biletnikoff winner, Jordan Addison, with them. Lincoln Riley hit the transfer portal really hard, brought Jordan Addison with them, Mario Williams, Brendan Rice as well. There's obvious question marks with the defense at USC, but Lincoln Riley also brought defensive coordinator Alex Grinch with him, and every college football betting analyst that I've ever heard just loves Alex Grinch. So I do think the defense improves just enough, and the offense is just going to – I think Caleb Williams is going to absolutely light up the Pac-12.
Jeff Clark is with OutKick Bets, OutKick.com contributor, and he's with us on OutKick 360.
Let's flip to NFL, Jeff. You didn't like any of the over-unders necessarily in the Big Ten. Do you have one or two in the NFL that you think stand out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I can give you two teams that I'm high on right now coming into the NFL season. One, it's becoming pretty popular, which is a bummer, but I love this New Orleans Saints team. They have a pretty soft strength of schedule. They're ninth, the ninth ranked schedule, ninth easiest schedule per Vegas win total. And barring injury, their defense should be top three. I mean, it's been overrated for years. They're fourth in defensive EPA per play and second in success rate over the last 3 years. Now, the looks that I like here for the New Orleans Saints, I think they're priced to make the playoffs at plus 125 as a relative lock. I love that number. I already have that in my account. I sprinkled on their alt win total, which is 9.5 and plus 175 over at DraftKings. I'm taking them to win the NFC South at plus 310. I don't hate Dennis Allen as coach of the year at plus 3,000. And I even sprinkled Bills to meet the Saints in the Super Bowl at plus 10,000. So I have a lot of action on the New Orleans Saints, but I really like the pieces they have around Jameis Winston. Obviously, he needs to have his best season, but getting back former offensive player of the year, Michael Thomas is huge. Chris Olave has got the best odds to lead the rookie wide receivers in rushing or receiving yards, and Jarvis Landry is probably one of the better slot wide receivers in the NFL. So I would just go over their alt win total 9.5 at plus 175. That's definitely a safer look than the NFC South price, just because Tampa Bay could also win 11, 12 games and edge them out in that division. But I mean, they own Tampa Bay. Like, they're 4-0 since Tom Brady joined the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 2 seasons ago. So I really like the Saints. An AFC team that I'm liking here. I like the Bills, obviously, but everyone likes the Bills. There really isn't any value in their betting markets, but I'm going to stay in the AFC East. I'm going to hit the Miami Dolphins over 9, which is at even money right now, plus 100. Ultimately, I think the market's just too low on Tua, and I'm going to buy his stock at a low point. He has a 66% completion percentage in his 21 games as a starter, 27 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. And this is playing with 2 different offensive coordinators, 2 different playbooks, and a defensive-minded head coach that reportedly hated him. So I think adding Tyreek Hill to a wide receiver core with Jalen Waddle, who was awesome as a rookie. They also added Cedric Wilson. Mike Gesicki is a great pass-catching tight end. They beefed up the backfield a little bit with Mostert and Chase Edmonds, and they do have a bad offensive line, but at least they're putting resources into it, and they acquired Terron Armstead from the Saints. So I do like the Miami Dolphins, and it's an even money number, over 9 at plus 100.
Jeff Clark has been our guest. So he mentioned the Saints, the story out of Vegas. Someone, I guess, while they were waiting on Brady over this 11-day hiatus to come back, someone put down $250 on the Bucs to have the worst record in the NFL. That bet it pays $450 to 1. Would net them $112,000 if Brady decided to retire and then they went forward with a backup quarterback.
That's a smart bet.
$250
going down
to win $112,000. I don't know if he feels foolish about that now with Brady back in the mix. But Jeff's at least leaning that way. Maybe not worst record in the NFL, but he's not saying that they're coming back and winning the NFC South because he's very high on the Saints. I would be high on the Saints as well if Sean Payton remained the head coach. I don't know if I am on board with Dennis Allen going to the Super Bowl.
I understand that, but we've seen first-year head coaches be very successful when they've inherited talented rosters. George Seifert comes to mind, Barry Switzer, blanking on more of a recent example. It's a fair point. I mean, Sean Payton is awesome, iconic coach, probably going to be Dallas Cowboys' next coach.
Yeah.
But I think Dennis Allen could hold it down for a couple seasons. I mean, if we were to project out 5 years, I'm not as sold on Dennis Allen, but next season I think he'll be all right.
Geoff, great to have you with OutKick, man. And we look forward to reading your work at OutKick Bets and everything at OutKick.com right now.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for having me, fellas. And I can't wait for the football season. Great show, and thanks for having me.
It's close. It is close. Thanks, Geoff.
You can download the DraftKings app. You can bet $5. You instantly get $200 in your account.
Yes.
And you can go to OutKick.com/bets for all of Geoff's content and more right now at the site. Great to have him a part of the OutKick crew. Coming up, the latest from the NFL, from all the big headlines from today. Pickett and Trubisky. Mitchell Trubisky was asked how he's performed through this preseason. His quote is interesting because he can feel Kenny Pickett. Pickett is charging towards the number one job.
Some hot breath at the back of his neck.
He can feel it.
Kenny Pickett's.
What Trubisky had to say about that and his overall play, how he would describe his preseason performance. I don't know. I don't know if we would use the same language in the description. Trubisky and his quote is next on OutKick 360. So before we dive into Mitchell Trubisky's quotes about his preseason performance, I do want to say he's played well. Like, Kenny Pickett has been very good. So has Mitchell Trubisky, who's trying to hold off the rookie. Trubisky is 9 of 15 passing in the preseason games. By all accounts, he's been good in practice. 9 of 15 in preseason games for 123 yards and a touchdown. And he's also scrambled a few times. I think he has 15 to 20 yards rushing. But he was asked to assess his preseason performance because everyone there is talking about Kenny Pickett. It's been a limited sample, but I think I've done a lot of great things in practice, a lot of good throws in the game. Just focus on what we can improve on as a unit right now, and that's staying on the field on third down and going down and finishing with some points, especially last game. Would like to stay on the field a little longer and finish in the end zone. We're just looking to see what we can improve on and keep doing that. But I've done a lot of great things so far. And I feel really comfortable with where I'm at and how I'm throwing the football and how I'm learning the playbook and going through all my reads so far. So he is, I don't want to say he's the only one that's praising Mitchell Trubisky. Like, Trubisky's the only one saying this about Trubisky because he has been good. But he has to know, no matter how good he is, if Pickett keeps this up, Kenny Pickett is taking over that job, right?
Yes.
No matter.
Well, I mean, the exception is if Trubisky starts the season and they're 4-0,
right?
You know, without him playing great, because they're going to be a run-centered defensive football team, which is at the heart of what the Steelers, want to do here. Then there could be a scenario.
Well, he can't. Kenny Pickett's not going to win the job in practice. So what I mean by that is if Trubisky's good, he has nothing to worry about in the games.
Right.
If he stumbles at all, it's going to be an easy hook to go to Kenny Pickett with his upside, knowing what they've seen in preseason games, knowing what they've seen in practice. My point is a stellar Kenny Pickett week of game practice slate is not going to get him the job. Mitchell Trubisky playing poorly will get him the job.
I thought initially, you know what, slow play this, don't throw the rookie into the fire. I've changed my tune on Pickett because of the first-round status. Omar Khan in year number one, clearly, I mean, they have hand-selected this going back to the draft when the regime change happened. You still have Tomlin. I mean, they have their guy. I'm more now leaning towards the idea of you get that guy in sooner rather than later instead of just letting this play out over a year or so. I would try to get Pickett reps and get him going as a first-round pick. It's different. To me, the investment's just different for a later-round pick in this class. But he's met, if he hasn't exceeded expectations in camp and in preseason, he has met them, right?
It's interesting. Yeah, oh yeah. It's interesting because it's been a long, long time in Pittsburgh between quarterbacks without a quarterback change. But I do have faith that Mike Tomlin and his sensibility will prevail here for them. And he's not as popular in Pittsburgh as he is around the country, Tomlin, because in Pittsburgh they feel like they should have won more and been more competitive. But
those poor
I think they're
fans.
in pretty safe hands.
Yeah. They'll make the right call. He's not going to rush anything. But at the same time, like, if you've got your guy and you kind of know it's time to get the ball rolling on this and you don't need a season of development, let him roll with the rookie. I don't care what you're paying Trubisky because I think we kind of know the ceiling of Mitchell Trubisky. He can be good, but not great, right? We agree there.
Yeah.
I think you draft Pickett because you feel like he can be great, the next great quarterback.
And, I mean, if he's good there, it's in large degree a function of not just the style of offense I'm talking about, where maybe you don't ask him to do a lot and it's a defensive running football team. But, Chicago didn't do a good job with the guy. And for 1 year in Buffalo, he didn't play. He got to watch Josh Allen and a good offense work. So what have Steelers coaches been able to do with him with their hands on him as kind of a unknown entity with good coaching in a better situation with a better team?
Our thanks to Geoff Clark for joining us today from OutKick.com. Coming up tomorrow, Armando Salguero and Trey Wallace on the show. More football discussion to get you ready for the college football kickoff. And then the NFL season's just around the corner.
We're so close. We've almost made it, guys. We are right there. Tomorrow will be 2 days away from college football kicking off for week 0, our favorite week of the year.
That's right. Back at it tomorrow, 2 o'clock Central, 3 o'clock Eastern.
Read it, live it. Don't block the box, but do lock your locks.